It's a Monday. Joe's already in the house. What up, Joe? Hope you had a great weekend. Back in the saddle one more time for Cooperville Live, wherever you were watching. Muchos thankos. I am not 100% sure that we are. Okay, we are. We had a little bit of delay in getting onto the Facebook today. We had to reconnect. C-Dub's in the house on the Twitch. Thanks for watching on the Twitch. Appreciate that. We are on all the platforms today, which is good. All of a sudden, you get all set to go. You hit the button and it's like, oh, we're sorry. Joe's everywhere. Joe's on the Twitch. Joe's on the tube. Everywhere. That's where he is. Here is where we are. Hello. Happy day. Big show today. Dr. J is on. We're talking resiliency with Dr. J LaGuardia today. That's moments away. And Australian rocker Cassidy Paris joins the show a little bit later on. 2 guests today on a Monday to get things started. Pretty excited about that. Be fun. Let's check in with our sponsors of the show. Okay. If you missed it on Friday, we had a big drop. Big drop for the yogis, or the alt yogis, I guess. The yogis of less pretentiousness. With our Go Smudge Yourself and Don't Be a Namaste line of ladies' tees, tanks, racerbacks. See, that was back on the YouTube now. Even throw pillows that say Go Smudge Yourself. And the Don't Be a Namaste. Wear it proudly. Coopervilleclothing.com. That was our big drop on Friday morning. So if you missed the show last week, there you go. Check it out. Coopervilleclothing.com. Captain Coop's Beard Company with those beard oils, beard balms, and beard butters for your bearded face. If you got face hair, we'll get it all nice and taken care of. At any length. I got guys with goatees that rock the beard balm. Shorter beards. Guys that have jobs that they don't allow them to grow. Large, lengthy, girthy beards. They rock that oil. You can too. CaptainCoops.com. Going to be a Riverfest coming up on the 14th of August. So plan your life accordingly if you happen to be in the valley. It'll be fun. And of course, our friends over at Midwest Meals just went and picked up our meals for the week. You don't have to pick them up if you are somewhere else. Maybe not Malaysia. Sorry, C-Dubs. It's might be out of their shipping area. But continental United States. You can order from Midwest Meals and get 10% off your first order with the promo code Cooper. Taking meal prep out. Open up your Sundays. You know what we did instead of meal prepping on Sunday? We floated the Chippewa River. Yeah. We jumped on tubes and we floated the river. And it was amazing. Beautiful day. Because we didn't have to worry about meal prep. It was all taken care of. Went and picked our meals up today. We are set for the week. Also, got to give a lot of love out to the Cravings Crushers. Little nuggets of goodness. So if you're feeling like a little snacky, middle of the day, maybe in the evening, you've had dinner, you're like, still kind of want something. Man, those Cravings Crushers. Tons of protein, deliciousness, fruity pebble flavor, fruity rubble flavor right now for this month. They change flavors every month. It's good stuff. Again, promo code is Cooper at checkout at MidwestMeals.com. So go and support my peeps, and they will support you. They ship nationwide on Mondays. So you get your order in for the week, and they ship it out on Monday. It gets to you, and ta-da, you're taken care of for the whole week. Like I said, busy weekend this weekend. Again, it's like, wow, we have nothing going on this weekend. Yet things found their way into our lives. Floating down the Chippewa. Joe's ready for next Saturday night's concert. That's next Saturday, isn't it? It's not this Saturday. Next Saturday, the Joe Stam Band is going to be in, is it Cameron? I think it's Cameron. Joe, correct me if I'm wrong there. I know we're going. And I'm excited. Messaging back and forth with Joe yesterday. Yes, okay. Because he's got a whole thing like T-shirts and stickers and all this stuff that says "Show me your bush," BUSCH, for Bush Light. So we were on the lake or on the river, floating the river yesterday, and the one time I took my phone out of the plastic bag because I knew at some point I was going to drop it in the river if I didn't be wary. So snapped a picture of our Bush lattes and sent it off to him. So now I'm excited. Wolf Den in Cameron, August 7th, the Joe Stam Band. Going to be the free show too, I think. It's a free show. So it'll be fun. I think we're going to try to get him some Cooperville clothing gear. Bring that up and let him rock it out. We're doing a little tradey deal. Free show. Yeah. Can't beat it. So if you're in the area, Saturday the 7th of August, it's part of my birthday celebration, so you can't say no. Joe Stam Band on the 7th. All the details are in the comments on YouTube. Joe's got it all squared away and taken care of for that. Otherwise, Joe Stam Band on all the social medias. Go and check it out. It's going to be a great show. Free show. Can't beat it. Live music. Can't beat it. We'll see you out there August 7th in Cameron at the Wolf Den. Gonna be fun. Like I said, big show today. Coming up later on in the show, Cassidy Paris live from Melbourne, Australia. And we are going to talk about music. She just dropped a new song called Wannabe last week. And she's got an EP coming out on September 1st. So we're going to talk about the EP Flirt. But first, it's Monday, and Mondays mean I do two things. I listen to Dr. Dre and I listen to Dr. J. The two things I do on a Monday to get my week started. Dr. J, welcome back. Hope you had a great weekend.
I had a wonderful weekend, Coop. How you doing, man? How's everybody doing over there?
Doing well. You know, you can tell that summer is in full effect because we went out and we're trying to do all of the things this summer. Last summer we didn't do all the things because some of the things we couldn't do. Now we're just trying to do all of them. So we floated the river this weekend. We were on a boat this weekend. We had a bonfire this weekend. We were in the pool this weekend. Like, there is not going to be a day with sunshine that will not be fully taken advantage of by the Cooper household.
You got to do it when you can, right? You just don't know when you get another opportunity, or that opportunity is going to be taken away from you.
Yeah, you never know. And there's weird things going on, Dr. J. I know we're going to talk about resiliency, but there's I subscribe to some weird newsfeed stuff that sometimes pops up, little things about masks coming back and some other scary things about lockdowns coming back. And we've talked about it, and we're like, there's going to be a rebellion against any of this if they try to swing it back around like they did last year.
Boy, we can go on for a long time on this, but the point being is, for what reason? What's the reason? And as I mentioned to you previously about this Delta variant that they're trying to whip everybody up into a frenzy, if you have had COVID, so let me start backwards, okay? A virus, when it mutates down. It means it becomes less virulent. It's not as strong. It can be more transmissible, but it's less virulent. How do I know that? Well, just study history. We've had viruses around before mankind. And the fact that we are still here as a species speaks to the fact that viruses mutate down, or we would have been wiped out thousands of years ago. Okay? Because it's only been really 100+ years when we're talking about modern medicine and really vaccines, the first vaccine, Jonas Salk, back in the 50s with polio vaccine. So let me do the math, 70 years. So how is it possible that we've made it this far if viruses mutate up? They just don't. And we know for certain that this Delta variant does not. In fact, there's a 3/10 difference genetically from the original COVID to the Delta variant. That's number one. Number two, the COVID vaccine was developed 9 months ago, maybe a little bit more than that right now. So if there's a variant that is mutated, the current vaccine doesn't cover it. Okay? All right, let's call it is what it is. And then the third thing being that if you've already had COVID, because the variant is so infinitesimally small in its variation, those who already have natural antibodies would have no issues whatsoever. Interesting enough, statistically, those who have died from the variant have been vaccinated, or more likely, those who have been vaccinated. Why is that? Because the vaccine doesn't infer immunity, doesn't create immunity. So the conversations that we have around the dinner table about this topic is, we have to temper it, because there is so much about this that is beyond reasonable, logical, and we continue to stir up people in a frenzy and to create fear. So what's the next step? Well, put the mask back on.
Right.
Well, then maybe we have to do lockdown. How well did that work last time? All right? 14 days, baby. Flatten the curve. Flatten the curve. I just don't think you're going to get any compliance whatsoever, especially coming from its current leadership that exists in Washington. Even those who support it, I don't think are overly impressed or confident in the people that are running this policy. Even just today or yesterday, Fauci came out, who denied forever funding the Wuhan lab. They were studying and testing COVID-19 and its variations. Came out yesterday on a national morning news show. Oh yeah, we were doing it. Well, wait a second, didn't you say you didn't do it? Once again, little Anthony Fauci caught in a lie. And these are the people you want to trust and put your health in your family's health? I don't know. I think we need to be far more critical thinkers, and we need to be far more aware, and it's healthy to be curious and ask questions. And just by the fact that those who question, including myself and people way smarter than me, people with degrees that run for a mile long, have been throwing up the red flag, which, by the way, they have no financial interest. Zero. Nothing to gain, other than their concern based on their knowledge, their research, and just understanding how viruses work. Why are they being shut down? Why can't there be a conversation? Why can't there be a dialogue? What are we afraid of? We're more afraid of a vaccine than the real experts who are concerned. Listen, when people say follow the science, very little science has 100% consensus. Very few. And how often, and I can give you list after list after a list. Just think of opioids. It's fine, don't worry about it. Safe. You're good to go. Okay? They were sued for $500 million and criminal penalties. And hundreds of thousands of lives were lost because of the almighty dollar. I'm sure there are people right now who are listening who know or lost family members because of the opioid addiction.
Yeah, I mean, it's still something that's running rampant. We had an incident here in Chippewa Falls today that was based around opioid issue. I'll say it was an issue, but SWAT was out, everything. So it's still something that's, very prevalent, even though it seems like it's kind of gotten put behind the curtain again because of all the COVID news that's coming out. Like, it's Oz all over again. We've made this reference a million times. Pay no attention to that man behind the curtain. There's nothing to see over here. It's kind of been happening with the opioid crisis and overdoses and stuff. And you've also had a ton of people for the last 18 to 20 months who've been forced into precarious situations. And when you're forced into a precarious situation, sometimes that leads down paths that are not exactly beneficial to that kind of health crisis, especially if you've already been dealing with an addiction issue in the past. So it's, again, we talked even early on in this when we first started the show, when we had you on, about all the numbers that will start to trickle out, from having people stuck at home and being in abusive relationships and addiction and all the other things, all the statistics that will start to come out and have already come out as far as the effects of lockdowns and the effects of, even mental health over the course of the last 18 to 20 months. So yeah, we got a lot of info, got a lot of stats that I always come to Dr. J for, because he's the numbers guy. He knows what's up, man. But
well, I got one more for you, and I guarantee you probably no one in your audience has heard. The end of last week, the CDC revised its death toll from the vaccine from 6,000 to 12,000. I was just looking for the number, 313 deaths over the last, since December. 12,313. Back in the late 70s when Legionnaire's disease was, I remember I was a kid and they came up with a vaccine for it. And again, I was looking for the note. It was either 23 or 53 deaths occurred from the vaccine. They shut it down. And now we're at 12,313. And they said, well, there's really nothing to worry about here. You know, the death rate is 0.0076. Really? Okay, let's use that logic. The infection to mortality rate of COVID is 0.26. Okay? I can do this all day long. All day long. And all it takes is just a little bit of research, just a little bit of open-mindedness. And even VAERS, the Vaccine Injury Reporting System, is saying that their numbers may be short 5 times what the actual number is. So you know what that potentially puts the death rate at? Over 50,000.
Don't see that on the news, do you, Dr. J?
You'll never, ever hear it. All you're going to hear is corporations forcing and coercing and manipulating their employees against their will, holding their jobs and their livelihood over their head to get a vaccine that's experimental, doesn't prevent them from getting sick or transmitting disease. But yet the unvaccinated are the risk. When perhaps many of them are already immune. So how do you do that without at least checking and seeing if these employees are already immune? Because if they're already immune, they're no risk to anyone.
Right. Yeah, I know there was a bunch of stories that came out recently. One of them there was a couple of them from the NFL about coaches either being let go or voluntarily leaving their positions as assistant coaches in the National Football League, which is, as the ladder goes in sports, you become an assistant, then you become a head coach, and then that's the trajectory of coaching. Coaches that are stepping down because they're being told that they have to get the vaccine. And then there was a story that came out today about, I believe it was the Indianapolis Colts head coach tested positive for COVID-19, had been vaccinated, double vaccinated, tested positive, and now is in quarantine as training camp gets underway. So it's a wild world.
Look at John Rahm, who was leaving to go to the Olympics. He had to pull out of, I think it was the PGA or the U.S. Open. I forget. It was one of the major championships, leading after 3 rounds. And he tested positive, and he had to pull out. And he tested positive again. Guess what? He's been vaccinated. And again, we're worried about the unvaccinated. Why?
Interesting. It's interesting stuff, Jay. Always have to dig a little bit below the surface to find those numbers and the information. But they are out there. That's the one thing that people, they're not going to tell you about them on the news. They're not going to pop up in your news feed. You have to go and do a little research, but the numbers are indeed out there. I know we want to talk about resilience today. I think it's a great kind of tie-in topic to all this because we have gone through a lot of stuff. I have a guest on after you're on, a young musician from Melbourne, Australia. They are currently back in lockdown, and I've been talking to some different artists from out of different countries, and they're trying to find ways to continue on. But there's a lot of people in the last, again, 18 to 20 months that have struggled with resiliency just because whether it was a business owner or worked in the restaurant field or any of the markets that were really affected by lockdowns and shutdowns and capacity orders and mask mandates and all this stuff. Resiliency is, as we started to see things kind of pop back up with live music, I mean, what a great topic to discuss because you could really get lost and not be able to find your way back after all this. But resiliency is what kind of brings you back into how to find new ways to do things or to do things the original way, but get past some of the BS people have to deal with. So give me your thoughts on resiliency as people try to get over all the stuff that's been going on for the last 18 months and in general.
Yeah, resiliency is such a huge component to overall success in life, because, how we view the world around us, whether we're victims of it or we simply, in other words, are things that are happening to us or from us? That means, if we believe that it's, from us, then we feel like the victim. If it's to us, okay, we figure out, okay, it is what it is. How do I rise above it? And it's resiliency first begins with a mindset, as everything that you and I discuss so often does. And so when we are able to frame adversity in a manner in which we look at it as not something to resist, but something to embrace, to understand, to learn, to grow from, it literally changes how our brain reacts to it, and therefore our ability to rise above it. So I find, I did a program last year for a group of professionals, and I said that resiliency is the number one ingredient to success. I wholeheartedly believe that, because there are times when, financially we may be experiencing some challenges. If we remain resilient, we can overcome. It may be professional, whatever it might be, maybe health issues. Our resiliency is the ability to bounce back. It is a critical element to success. And the more resilient you are, the more successful you become. And the three things that determine resiliency are your determination, believe it or not, kindness, and self-worth. So when we are determined to overcome something, we'll figure it out. Even though maybe the solution's not apparent, it will become apparent. And when we do it with kindness and eliminate malice, or if we're looking at things in a manner, again, where we're feeling like a victim or frustration, if we embrace it in kindness, then we disempower the adversity. And then self-worth. I'm worth getting healthy again. I'm worth regaining my financial health back, or my professional life back. So there are certain elements to resilient people that are common. Now, there are three basic needs when it comes to the human condition. It's safety, satisfaction, and connection. And so resilient people are ones who feel safe in their environment, and they help other people feel safe in their environment. So when we feel safe, we feel protected. Satisfaction is, we feel happy with our life, with our relationships, people around us. In other words, Coop, it's worth fighting for, right? Overcoming is worth fighting for. And then connection. When you feel like you're not going through it alone, it gives a sense of courage, which is one of the 12 characteristics of resiliency. And so there are 12 different, I won't go through all of them, but there's 12 different resilient characteristics that if we, keep ourselves grounded in, helps us become really the most resilient we can possibly be.
I think there's a lot of exit ramps when it comes to facing adversity and getting off of the pathway that you're on. If you're, whether it's that success, whether that's a weight loss goal, financial freedom, there's so many exit ramps you can get off on. And it seems like at the top of every exit ramp, and this is, again, it seems like we circle back to the crabs in the bucket thing, but it's also that victim mentality that we talked about a little bit last week, is as soon as you get off on that exit ramp, because of adversity, because of a challenge that gets in your way, there is going to be people along the side of that exit ramp that are like, hey, it's okay. Don't worry about, that bump in the road happens. We'll be okay at this exit ramp. You don't need to, push on or go forward down the road. You'll be fine. Look, we're at this exit ramp and we're happy and we're okay because we all ran into the same obstacle and decided to get off of the highway. There's always going to be a group that will find comfort and be able to give you a fake support network of patting you on the back. It's okay, buddy. This is not a big deal. It's going to be fine. You look how far you come. You don't need to worry about going any further. It's the resiliency and the things that you talked about, the elements that go into it. Those are the people that stay on that road and find a way to keep on going forward and keep moving forward. And even though those exit ramps seem like, oh man, it would be so easy just to get off the road right here and and call it good and figure it out. There's going to be people here who will, support my failure and not allow me to move back on. But it's overcoming all of that stuff, keeping the obstacles moving. And the one key ingredient that you mentioned was learning from them. I've gone through a ton of these things over the course of the last 2 years in business and in relationships and everything else. is, learned that this wasn't the way to go with this particular thing or this particular avenue, or okay, now I'm wiser, so that as I continue on down the road and that obstacle reappears or some sort of variant of it reappears, I'm like, we tried that before and it didn't work. So here's how we're going to get over it this time, because we learned something and we keep on moving forward. But those exit ramps, that victim mentality, hey, it's okay. We'll hold you tight over here on the side of the road. You're going to be okay. Don't worry about being successful or, completing that goal that you had. It's fine. Look at us. We're good over here. It's crabs in a bucket, just a different, phraseology of putting it together. But to keep on learning and keep on moving forward, that is, that's consistently being resilient. And I think it's something that I'm guessing you'd agree with, that you kind of encounter every day in some way, shape, or form or another, keeping on that forward momentum.
Yeah, there's no question about it. I mean, if each one of your listeners just thinks about over the last year, things that they've overcome. A lot of times people will not pursue a new opportunity based on a previous experience. Mm. So in other words, they're predicting a similar outcome in the future based on a past experience. And that's faulty. It's a faulty belief, because who you are now is not who you were before. So therefore, the result can be dramatically different. Mm. And so I bet you everyone can point back to a certain point in time over the last year where they've overcome something. And so what I'm saying is use that as your anchor. Well, this happened to me and I got through it. I was cool. I figured it out. I talked to some people who were really smart and they helped me get through it. Or, I changed my mindset and I changed my habits and I changed my beliefs and I did something different. So the best thing you can do if you want to be more resilient, and think about the things that you've already overcome, because your listeners are already resilient. They just don't know it because they're not aware of it. They're not, keeping in the forefront of their minds. And it reminds me, last year when everything was shut down, we had just opened a new business together as a family. We were open 5 days and we had to shut down. I mean, we spent a lot of marketing and promotion to get ready to launch, and we were positioned in a great place, and it was taken away from us. Mm-hmm. It was out of our control. And it was my job, to be the rock for, my kids who were running their first business together. I mean, just think about it. First time I opened a business and it shut down and all the fear that comes along with it. So, I had helped them, reframe and help them understand keeping focus of what they can control and let go of what you can't control. Be compassionate, continue to work on building relationships, keep learning and growing about yourself and your business. So when we can reopen, we're ready to go. We're positioned to go. Don't sit there, in self-pity, because that's not going to get you anyplace. And then of course, let's be gritty. And so someone said to me, how do you define gritty? Right? Because we've all heard it. It's when we're exhibiting bravery and courage and determination despite difficult times. That's grittiness. And so these are all important characteristics that if we stay focused on, we can overcome anything, because we have, not just individually, but collectively as a species, as a country, as a community.
And I think you really put a great window for people to look back on and look at the last year, 18 months or whatever, March to March and a little bit beyond, is all of the changes that people had to or were forced to go through. And whether that was a change of going to work in an office building every day to having to do it online, or whether it was your business was focused on in person and you had to go to a virtual setting, like many people, and sometimes it gets lost because of the spin on what happened over the last 18 months. It was a lot of negativity. It was all bad. But those who were resilient found ways during that time to reinvent themselves, to, find new ways to implement, their business. If they were a gym rat and their gym wasn't available because it was open for 5 days and then you couldn't be open, like finding different ways to understand that, okay, my health and my wellness are really important. And even though the secure place I used to go, or part of my routine was to go to this place, I did the gym 4 days a week, and I was there at 7:30. That wasn't available. Those who were resilient found different ways to do it, whether that was, taking a virtual, training course, or whether it was getting outside and doing things. People were massively resilient during the last 18 months, but it does take a little bit of hindsight to go, oh yeah, I did behave resiliently there, and I was gritty during some of those tougher times. The dark cloud tends to overshadow the sun sometimes when you don't, try to peel it back and go, oh yeah, I had to do all these things. I had to find a new way to, I wasn't working at home, and I was working in an office, and I was working at home, and I have kids, and they were at home. They weren't in school. I had a spouse that was, busy doing this and then couldn't do it. So we found ways. A lot of people found ways to be super resilient during this, but I think you're right. You have to go back and go, oh yeah, that point, and then that point, and then that point. And I really am a resilient person, because then that builds that confidence that you talked about, and your support system goes, yeah, you crushed it during all this stuff, and then again, you continue to move forward, and you stay off the exit ramps moving forward.
That's why I'm such a huge believer in constant, never-ending personal improvement, or in a better, simpler term, growth. When we're growing, we're adapting. When we're adapting, we're innovating. And I'll give you a perfect example. So, I remember when I was younger, and my parents would hear the music a lot, and you get into that, well, in my day, the best bands in the world, whatever, and maybe there's some truth in it, and there's also probably a little bit of, where we have this personal preference, but my kids turn me on to some new artists I haven't heard. Like, this stuff is pretty good. I don't know if I go out and buy their CDs. Well, CDs. Their MP3s. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But I listen to it. It's like we get so stuck in our ways and our habits that it permits us from growing. Mm-hmm. And it's one of the reasons why we decline and we lose, mental and physical capacity as we age, because we stop expanding our mind and feeding it with new knowledge and information and trying new stuff, right? Yeah. Oh, that's not for me, How do you know? Try it. So being innovative and being willing to put yourself out, making yourself uncomfortable, is one of the greatest forms of resiliency, because you'll be able then, because through your vast experience and knowledge, have more skill sets to be able to be more resilient.
I think the music analogy is a great one, because people get stuck in there's like a 10-year window of time. And usually it's like your high school years till like your mid-20s, because that's what they say is the most influential music part of your life is that period. But you get stuck in that, and it has so much more ties to other things. Like, well, this is the window, and I don't want to step out of it because this is where I feel most comfortable. It's the same reason people watch, and I'm guilty of it too. You watch your favorite movie, from 1984, because it takes you back to that place. You're like, I'm so safe. I know every line to the movie. I don't have to worry about a new version. Like, I don't want to, I can't invest my time in that. But I think there's a mentality that goes along with that doesn't allow you to continue to grow and to learn and to expand your mind. You may not like it. Like, I don't know about this new stuff, but you're like, maybe there's something there, but you're still expanding that mindset, that growth, whether it's music or whether it's a new sport or a new hobby or something that you just want to, dabble in a little bit. Like, try it. Don't be the guy that's kicking kids off his lawn,
Yeah, not the backyard. Exactly. That's exactly it. No question about it. And so as we age, it's even more incumbent for us to step outside our comfort zone. Because when we stay stuck is when we see mental decline, and it happens quite rapidly. It's why you see people after they retire, unfortunately pass pretty quickly afterwards, in a lot of cases, because whatever it is that it kept them going, for 30 years is now taken away, and there's nothing to replace it. And naturally, that's what the body's going to do.
It's weird how society has as the framework of life set up to reach that point. Reach the point where you no longer have to do anything else. And then you see what happens after you get to that point. Like, you can retire and you can just, do whatever you want to do. And then you see the decline that happens shortly thereafter. It's weird.
That's so true. It's a great point. Absolutely. Right. So we go to school and we're taught how to be an employee.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're taught to find this great corporate job and stay there for 30 or 40 years and then retire. So, whatever, your retirement is, you can start living life because you don't have to go to work anymore. Man, that to me, that's not living. That's existing. That's punching the time clock of life. So what we want to make sure that we do is have experiences, and as we mentioned, try new things, and get to the point where we're comfortable with the uncomfortable. It's one of the phrases I love, and if more people can get uncomfortable, rather than being comfortable all the time, life is way, way more exciting in that uncomfortable state, but that's when growth occurs too, right?
Yeah. 100%. Dr. J, your Financial Freedom Summit is coming up next week, right?
That's correct. The 3rd and 4th. And as I remind everybody, it's virtual. I understand it's on a Tuesday, Wednesday, but we did it specifically. So you sign up, you can get the playback option, and you can listen to each of the presenters at your convenience. And it's really, it's going to be an amazing event, and it's easy for people to find. thetripleplife.com/freedom, financial freedom 2021.
Boom. Dr. J, always a pleasure. We will talk to you in a week, sir. Go enjoy life for the rest of the week, all right?
Sure will. Thanks, Coop.
Awesome. Thanks, Dr. J. Always golden nuggets of information dripping from the sky when Dr. J is on. Resiliency, our topic for discussion today. Joe says, thank you, Dr. J. My mom's in the house. Mom's in California. Mom, hope all is well out west. It's hot here. It's like California hot. 91 degrees right now. This is not Joe's weather. Joe does not like it hot. But we're enjoying it as much as we can here in Wisconsin. Great stuff. I hope that if you didn't get a chance to listen to the whole thing, go back. Obviously, the replay will be available as soon as the show gets done today. Whether it's on Facebook Live, you can go, or the Facebook page, you can go back and you can rewatch it over and over again. Maybe take some notes, just dabble in some stuff. I think that look back is like super important. If you look back at the last 18 months, go back to March of 2020 when things got weird, and you may have that dark cloud that we talked about. You may have like a lot of the thoughts that were like, ugh, it was like it's icky. I don't want to go back and think about it. But if you put some perspective on it and you go back and you find those things that you had to be resilient in, the adjustments that you had to make that you probably didn't want to do, that probably weren't all that comfortable for you. I mean, we had so much shit go on in the last year. Like, I can't even. I could go back and be like, wow, that really sucked. But hey, it was a point that we had to become resilient and make an adjustment and pivot and to learn from. And I think there's going to be a lot more of those moments if you go back and look at it than maybe you think, because it does have this, everybody wanted to forget 2020. Everybody wanted to move past it. Like New Year's Eve, everybody's like, it's so over. And we're like, no, it's whatever this is still happening. But if you go back and you look at the year that was, or even, expand beyond that, maybe start with the last year and then kind of go back to points in your life when you go, man, I had to really make an adjustment. I had to pivot and I had to do things I wasn't super duper comfortable doing. That is being resilient. And if you've been resilient, you are resilient, and you continue to be resilient going forward. A lot of stuff, a lot of things happening in the 6 inches between your ears. Just got to realize it. But no, great stuff from Dr. J as always. And don't forget his Financial Freedom Summit is virtual. TriplePLife.com. Go check out the website and find out more info. It happens next week, but you can get it and watch it on replay. It's like this show. It's live, but then you can watch it at your leisure, which is super convenient stuff. Dr. J. And probably had a new episode. I didn't even bring it up. New episode of the Triple P podcast, Power, Passion, Prosperity podcast dropped today as well. So Dr. J all the way. What do we listen to? We listen to Dr. Dre and we listen to Dr. J. The music analogy was a good one too. Like you stay in your window, like you listen to things that you're comfortable with because it makes you like comfortable. And then you get curmudgeon-y over like new stuff or different stuff or things that your kids listen to. Now, as a parent, and my mom is here, so she knows I listen to some weird shit. But like cartoon theme songs, like I would find myself singing along with them. But then after like the 4,000th time you hear the same cartoon theme song, you're like, no more Peppa Pig, please, no more. no more Paw Patrol, no more. So I get it, but there is an analogy there when you talk about other things in your life that you try to you keep in your safe zone about, and that could be music, that could be business, that could be physical fitness, your health, the food you eat. Like if you like kind of step out of that once in a while, it becomes easier to step out of those comfort zones and find new things and expand your mind and learn new things. And as he says, every day becomes a day about personal growth, about mental growth, about learning something new, discovering your resiliency. And even if that is looking backwards, to reaffirm to yourself that you've overcome situations, that you are strong enough to get through whatever it is that you are going through in any aspect of life. Being resilient, being able to go back through and do those things. It's just great knowledge. It's using the noodle, man. The box, outside. Dr. J, always a pleasure to have him on the program. He is here every single Monday at 5:10 Central Standard Time. So make sure you join us next week. I'm sure we'll have another great round of discussion with Dr. J. Super excited to have Cassidy Paris on the show. She just dropped a new song last week. It's awesome. It's called Wannabe, and she's hanging out in Melbourne, Australia. Now she's hanging out on the show. Cassidy Paris, welcome to the program. How are you?
Hey, how are you? Thank you so much for having me.
No, I'm so glad to have you. Congratulations on the success of Wannabe. Got to feel good to get music out there in people's ears.
Thank you. Yeah, it's very exciting.
And you're about 18 and you have like 7 songs out. Like you've been writing songs. I think you were like 5 and you just started writing songs in crayon. Like you're like super talented. Like when did this musical journey start for you? Because you're knee high to a grasshopper.
Yeah. So I'm currently 18, like you said, and I've been writing, and music just has been a constant in my life since I was so little. Mm-hmm. My dad's been performing in bands since I was a little girl, and I used to go and watch him and kind of take it all in. And that's when I really realized that I wanted to do this myself, and this was my passion. So I was very excited to be able to, and privileged to be able to join the music industry and play a little part in the music industry at least.
That's got to be a good vantage point for you, because having somebody who's playing music and in a band and doing musical things, that really gives you a good inside look, because there's people that look at music from the outside and are like, this is amazing, I'm going to be the next XYZ artist. They don't see the behind the scenes stuff that you got a chance to see. So I'm sure you learned some valuable lessons even before you dabbled your foot into music.
Yeah, definitely. I always say that I've got a fantastic support network around me. I have so many fantastic artists and people that just know the industry very well. So I'm very privileged and grateful to have that on my side. So they all give me their words of wisdom. So that's very, very cool.
Songwriting is always a fascinating thing to me, because I did radio for 20 years. Music has always been a part of my life. My family was very musically inclined. I don't know that I was necessarily blessed with those gifts, but I had the gift of gab, apparently. So I went into radio. But understanding the songwriting element of music, and especially in a format like rock, it is so important. It is so impactful. It's what connects the fan to the artist. Tell me about your songwriting, because it feels like you are really like you're standing for stuff. Like you're telling your story and telling it how it is. How does your songwriting process work at such a young age?
It definitely varies. I songwrite with Paul Lane, who is Danger Danger, Defiance. He's just an all round fantastic guy, and he's the absolute package. He's just genuinely got everything in terms of his musical abilities, and it's so cool to watch that unfold. I remember the first time he came over to Oz, Australia. He came to our house and he would just play any instrument under the sun, and I was like, this guy, he's ridiculously talented. And I remember him sitting in the car with us, and he'd just make up little bits and pieces of songs whilst he was just like rhyming, and I'm like, how is he doing this? And they were awesome. Right. Yeah, it definitely does depend. Most of the time, because Paul is in Canada, it is a Skype thing. So we will we normally have an idea of what we want to write about before we go into the session, but I always bring little bits and pieces and ideas, and so does he, and we work out the melody, and then we'll go back and forth on emails and Skype with lyrics. So that's normally how it works, but it definitely does depend, because if he's over here, then we can like smash out 5 songs in one day. So it definitely does depend.
How do you balance it all? Because you're young, and I'm sure there's probably some element of schooling going on. I'm not sure how much, this day and age with the weirdness of everything right now, but how do you, like, being young and balancing, education and obviously having an insight into music and writing and Skype sessions and I'm sure continuing to expand your brand. We got the EP that's coming out in September. Like, how do you balance it all? Do you have like a Google Calendar that you just keep track of every, hour of your life?
I do actually have to keep a calendar because I always said my head wasn't screwed on, it'd fall off it. I definitely have to keep track of what I'm doing and when I'm doing it, but I always used music as an outlet, especially in high school. Like, it was my outlet to express myself. So everything that was going on in my personal life, that's what I put into my music. So like for instance, a song "Stand" that I released, was my second release, was very close to me because it was all about standing up for yourself as a woman, and making sure that you stand up for your rights and like bullying, which I'm working with Metalheads Against Bullying, which is an awesome campaign and very close to my heart as well. Very, very privileged to be aligned with that. So a bunch of things do influence my music, but my personal life is what I always put into, and I think that's what makes the music so strong. Like, in my opinion, when an artist puts their personal life and everything into their music, you can really hear the difference.
Mm-hmm. Do you have artists that you have kind of gravitated towards? I want to say, like, influence maybe is the right word, but like artists that do that you go, yeah, like, she's killing it, and I can tell that she's telling her story. Or even like sonically, artists that have kind of dabbled in your ear. Obviously, you're very unique. You're your own artist, but there's always like little things that you can kind of take from people or take notes on. Are those artists that you kind of find yourself gravitating towards?
Absolutely. I always say that I've been raised on like 80s hard rock, and the real female rockers that started it, like Joan Jett, Pat Benatar, Lita Ford. I love all those. But I also love some modern stuff. So I love, like, Lizzie Hale was Hailstorm was one of the first bands I ever got introduced to by my dad when I was little. Well, a little girl, I mean, not like really little, because I don't think Hailstorm were around when I was really little. But I remember making this like life-size poster of like a Lizzie Hale like guitar and bringing it into my like music class, and everyone just like looked at me. I have no idea what. I played the Apocalyptic video to my year 7 class, and that was quite interesting to see how they responded to that. Such a great song, by the way.
Great one.
But yeah, I there's definitely like a bunch of artists. Like, I've been listening to a lot of Hayley Williams as well from Paramore recently. A bunch, like Avril Lavigne has always been a huge influence on my music. A bunch of things. I like to incorporate, and this is what I always say in my interviews, I like to incorporate my music. I think is a modern twist on like 80s hard rock. So like, and I definitely bring bits and pieces from 80s, 90s, 70s rock music that I always grew up with and put a modern twist on it. So yeah.
I think all the artists that you talked about, I mean, those are the heaviest of the heavy hitters. I mean, as far as that, but also really strong female, like, nobody messed with Joan Jett. Like, you still don't. I mean, you're just like, but there's an ownership when they get on the stage. And I think, having seen Hailstorm, a handful of times and watched, that band kind of grow from, brother and sister playing around to, like, I mean, owning a main stage at, a 30,000 cap room. There is so much ownership in what Lizzie does. And she's been able to, I think, really, I want to say expand the brand, but when she's like, I'm going to go do this, this country song, or I'm going to go and play with Eric Church at the CMAs. Yeah. Like, she is just like fearless. And I think there's a lot of, I see a lot of that in what you're doing, because you have a message and it rings really loudly and truly. So I think there's, you're going to own the stage. I mean, I feel like that's, with all those influences, that's stage ownership right there, 101.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all those artists are like definitely badass, and I definitely aspire to be like them, but my own person as well. Yeah. So with Wannabe, my main intention was to get that message out, like you were saying. Wannabe is basically a track that I wrote maybe start of last year, and I had this idea for all these people that just live these like fabricated lives, as I like to call them. And it was really interesting to see how it came along. And we basically, it's like a tongue-in-cheek, like sarcastic song that we kind of came up with, and I'm really, really proud of it. I think it's really cool.
I think it's a great message too, because you see what's going on in the fabricated life, as you call it, whether that's on Instagram or it's on TikTok. I mean, my kid is 10 and he's on TikTok. I'm like, you can't dance, man. Like, what do you like? What's? But there is this. I think there feels like there's this gateway to be like, again, something that you're not, but you can become famous on these platforms with, I don't want to say no talent, because I'm sure that there's people on there. I mean, there's songs that have come out of the TikTok world that have gone on to do great things on the charts, but for the most part, it's this glamorous life that people are living. You're like, wait a minute, you're my kid. I know where you live, and this isn't it, man. Yeah. Like, you're not living this life, but then they get caught up in it, and then somebody has success, and they keep on trying to project themselves into that arena, and you're kind of like, we need a little more reality in this, reality world.
Absolutely. And that's exactly what we talked about when Paul and I came up with the idea. It was that TikTok life. It was that fabricated life that people were living online. So they just weren't living in themselves. Like, they were changing themselves to become someone else, like the next version of someone else, rather than the first version of themselves. Yeah. And I saw a lot of that in high school. It was quite hilarious to see how many people I thought were raw and just themselves, but they were made up of other people, and like they wanted to be the next version of the popular girl, or they wanted to be, I think do you call it a jock in America?
Like athlete?
Like a sports person? Yeah. We don't ever use that term here. I've heard it a lot in like American films, and I've been on podcasts and stuff before. So things like that were definitely an inspiration point for me, and I wanted to come out of high school, and I was thinking to myself, what should I write? Like, this whole experience, and that's why I said in my post the other day, it really was 6 years in the making, this song, because every little point up until this point, every little experience really was channeled in the song. It was my high school experience in one song.
And I think it's great for you to be able to tell that story, because for someone like me who's edging on 41, like, this technology did not exist when I was going through high school. There was like, you really had to be yourself because nobody cared outside of your town. But now you have this, you went through and had these platforms and saw the effect it was having on other people throughout the course of your high school life. So to be able to tell this story, be like, I thought these guys were cool. I thought they were, real humans. And then you turn on their TikTok and you're like, that's not your car.
Definitely, exactly. And that was just such a constant in my high school, like I said, and it was hilarious to see some of the outcomes. Yeah. Hilarious.
And I think there's, as an artist and as a musician, I think there is a real value in the things you talk about being yourself, being who you are, being raw, telling your story. There's more of a connection point with a fan base and somebody who's being real than somebody who's, standing in front of a Lamborghini spouting about, throwing money in the air. Like, it's, especially if that's not who you are as a person. You're like, there's so much more love, I think, that you'll have from your fan base. They're like, yeah, she's real. She's legit. She's the real deal.
Absolutely. And being raw and authentic and just putting out your real life on social media and things like that, it's something that I try to pride myself on, and it's something that's very, very important to me, because there is so much fabricated stuff on the internet, and that's the scary thing with social media. You can't determine what's real and what's fake, and that's why I try to bring to light in my music things that are real, sharing my personal experience and everything like that.
I know the last 18 months to a year has been different. I'll put it that way. It's been different. I know you guys are still dealing with some lockdown stuff over there. How did you get through as an artist, as a creative, as somebody who, wants to be out and you want to be with Paul, like face to face, knocking out 5 songs, in a day, but having to adjust? How did you, focus your attention during the last 18 months? Was it on songwriting? Was it on, obviously you got music out now. How would you spend the last 18 months that kind of got you through whatever the heck that was?
Yeah, I probably sound like a broken record because I say this every single time that I'm on an interview when I get asked a question about the lockdown, but music really was like the cure to all that. It was my medicine, and I really channeled my experiences and my personal thoughts around everything that was happening in the world into my music, and it was so important that for me, I'm very privileged because I have another musician in the household, and I was able to like jam with my dad and rehearse with my dad, whereas some people didn't have that. Some people didn't even have music or have access to music, which is crazy because I was constantly listening to things. I tried to use that time to grow myself and make sure that I was developing as an artist and vocally and in like the guitar as well. So I was constantly jamming, constantly listening to different types of music because, as my dad would say, a good song is a good song. So we try to listen to as many genres as possible and try to take bits and pieces and like put that into our music. So it was definitely a time of reflection for both of us, and we were able to use that time, I think, pretty successfully and use it to write and record. For me, it was good because I was kind of in the cycle where I needed to write and record. So that was and also I was in year 12 last year. So that was also, I was doing year 12 online and I was doing music, which was, it actually worked out well, but there were some elements that you just couldn't help, like not performing. That was like, oh my, that was a crazy big change, and we were definitely devastated when we learned that we weren't able to do that. So yeah, it was definitely difficult, but I think, like I said, music is the medicine.
Yeah. And I think obviously with having your EP coming out, it's called Flirt, comes out September 1st. Yeah. Obviously you there was productivity during this time. You talked about writing and recording and getting this EP ready to go. Are you excited to? I know Wannabe was great and you dropped it last week. Too much fanfare, so congratulations on that. But are you excited to get this EP out and kind of keep the ball moving forward?
Definitely. Flirt is just, I'm very, very excited to release that. I've got some live stuff on it as well, which is really cool to release because I've never released any live music apart from YouTube that's professionally been done. So that's really exciting to be able to release that. And I think like there's a magic to live stuff as well. So definitely that's cool to be put on the EP, and one of these is going to be on it. Definitely it's a feature track. So I'm very excited about that.
And I think that is so cool, the fact that there's live stuff on there, because a lot of artists, especially young aspiring artists, would shy away from putting live stuff on there because, I mean, there's tools and tricks to the trade, as you are well aware of, that it takes a real brave step to be like, no, you want raw and gritty, you're going to get it. So I think that's an awesome move, and I'm really looking forward to cracking up the live stuff. As you look forward to this release coming out, like, are you hopeful that there's going to be some performances? I know as a stage performer, I'm sure that's the big element that was missing in your life. Are you holding out hope that you can get back on a stage sometime very soon and be able to perform some of this stuff live as we get into 2022?
Oh, absolutely. I'm actually booked to go to the UK next year.
Nice.
So late next year. So that's very exciting. And I had a show last week that was booked, but that got cancelled due to the Melbourne lockdown. But it's rescheduled for the 28th of August. So I'm very, very excited and looking forward to that. Putting all my energy and everything towards that one. So I'm very excited to be able to perform in my hometown. But hopefully, fingers crossed, we've been talking about US tours and everything. So that's also very exciting.
Yeah, I think the ground is fertile over here for live music. We've had a couple of experiences in the last couple of weeks, and it's been great to see that connection between artist and fan, because I think not only have the artists missed out on that element of the live show. I mean, that's where it all started. I mean, you saw from behind the scenes, your dad playing shows and stuff. It starts there. It starts in a garage somewhere, and then the studio part comes into it. But to see the fans reconnect with their artists, it was an energy unlike anything other. So I know you'll get to experience that coming up on August 28th. If people want to find you on social media, on your website, give them all the links so that they can connect with you. I got a bunch of people here in the chat. Joe says, come here and perform. Of course. Love the music. My mom from California loves it. So hi, Mom.
Oh, awesome. Thank you.
So let people know your social medias and stuff so they can connect with you and continue to watch you on your journey.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Cassidy Paris. The song is Wannabe, the EP Flirt with live music on it. It's a concept that I'm absolutely 100% in love with. Comes out September 1st, and I'm guessing available on all streaming platforms.
It is indeed.
Awesome. Thank you, Cassie. Take care of yourself. Enjoy the rest of your day, and hopefully we'll get you over here in the States sometime at a live show.
Absolutely. You know it. See you later. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Cassidy Paris, the song is Wannabe. Go check it out. Streaming everywhere music is streamed right now. And then the EP Flirt, that comes out September 1st. So good stuff. At Cassidy Paris Official on Instagram. Go and check that out. Joe, thank you. Yeah, great talent. It's good to see young talent. We had Jazzy K on from Sydney. Great young talent. Cassidy Paris, great young talent. It's good to see that the musical torch, especially in that rock and roll genre, being continued, because there's, even when she talked about Wannabe and then the meaning behind it, the glitz and the glam of social media, and that has a tendency to lay root in pop music, but to have a rock and roll edge to it, I think that's super cool that there's a continuation of rock and roll carrying that torch into the future. The future looks bright, as they say. Thank you all for cranking us up and tuning in today on a Monday. I know it's Mondays are always a struggle for everybody, but thank you for being a part of today's show. Tomorrow, we're back on a Tuesday with my buddy Shelby Lee Lowe. Shelby Lee Lowe is back because he's got new music, he's got shows on the docket, and we're going to talk about all the new stuff that he's got coming up. Shelby Lee Lowe is on the show tomorrow. Thank you for tuning in. Let's do it again then. Thank you to Dr. J as well. Always good stuff with Dr. J. And Cassidy Paris. Good stuff today. Still 90 degrees out. Come on, people. What's happening here? Peace.